Okay, just to follow up on some of the points Senator Back was making about the imbalance of power, can I take you to Bankstown Airport? And the master plan that was signed off, and as the Chair would appreciate, it was signed off under a previous government, of a coalition government, but zoning that was regarded as commercial was viewed by the tenants at the time as being commercial aviation because it involved areas that were used for the movement of aircraft, specifically helicopters approaching, landing, taxiing to maintenance facilities that people had invested significant amounts of money in building. There is now advertising on the internet that that land, which currently is a manoeuvre area for helicopters, is being made available by the leaseholder for commercial warehouses, hard stands and other things. And his response when I contacted him was that it is in the master plan that was approved as commercial areas and there had been no objections. To what extent does the department accept that if an airfield is an airfield and predominantly for aviation purposes, then it's reasonable that an existing business, when looking at a proposal saying you're a commercial operation and we're zoning the area you're in as commercial, would expect that things like aircraft movement areas would remain aircraft movement areas and therefore not lodge an objection to that zoning that says commercial? Is it reasonable for the leaseholder then to call for expressions of interest from the public to build warehouses on an area that would then essentially prevent the operation of an established business?
Well, I'm not familiar with the circumstances, Johnny.
Senator, obviously in reaching the master plan decision, the potential use of the site for aeronautical purposes, and that would, I think, be strongly evidenced if it was currently being used for aviation movements, and I understand that in this case it's helicopters, then that would be a powerful factor. I think the difficulty here is that once the master plan is approved, which gives them the right to, if you like, to, I shouldn't say right, but where it's zoned as something to allow for broader commercial development, they're going to look at what they can do to make use of that site. We'd certainly be keen for them to explore, if they're moving current aviation users, to explore reasonable alternatives. But it's very hard for us legally to stop them doing what's been allowed under their master plan.
So what is the duty of care by the Commonwealth as the owner of the airport if the basis of the lease was that it should predominantly be preserved as an aviation facility? Is there not a duty of care in the Commonwealth to make sure that when approving master plans that those kinds of loopholes essentially that then allow a lessor to shut down aviation-related businesses are actually prevented as opposed to being endorsed tacitly by the Commonwealth?
Senator, I can just say, and I can't talk about what happened back in 2005 when that master plan was approved, but it is one of the things we try to get to the bottom of.
Okay. Can I ask you to take on notice?
I would say, as I've said previously, wherever possible, our intention is to maximise aeronautical activity. That's what we're looking at. If there has been that issue of a merge, which has been, in some way, rezoning has happened without the aeronautical operators being aware or raising their concerns, then we would be concerned about that. We are looking to maximise the aviation operations of that airport. As you know better than all of us, it is a very scarce resource, aeronautical assets.
If this is Bankstown, we've raised this some years ago. I mean, between that and this is a doctor in aviation, this fellow here, and the crosswind runway being scrapped. I mean, the airspace will become unmanageable.
And hence, our concern is to maximise the capacity of Bankstown. If you look at the work of the joint study report, it makes clear how critical Bankstown's aeronautical growth is.
Could I just take you then to some media reporting from October last year that Bankstown is looking to take over a state government lease of an adjoining golf course? Are you familiar with that reporting?
Yes, Senator.
And the stated intention is so that they can increase aviation facilities. Reading a bit further, what they're actually talking about is relocating buildings and businesses from the current airport site to the new golf course site. So essentially they've now just become a developer as opposed to an airport operator. what kind of oversight does the Commonwealth exercise on behalf of the existing leaseholders, given the reports we've had from many of these airports, including Canberra, where the leaseholder has almost arbitrarily moved at the business's own expense those people to a new location? What protections is the Commonwealth seeking to put in place on behalf of those aviation businesses?
Senator, if that transaction was to go ahead, the first question for the Commonwealth would be whether to incorporate the new land into the airport site. And if that was done, there would be planning. But there's the first hurdle in this case, as I understand it, would be to convince the New South Wales government to make the land available to Bankstown, and I'm not sure that they've crossed that hurdle.
Sure, I understand that, and in fact the local government as well appears to have objections because of drainage, but what I'm more interested in here is the principle. You know, let's assume that those other two levels of government give it the green light. What I'm asking is, in principle, for your governance frameworks, what processes do you have or will you put in place to protect the interests of people who have invested in aviation enterprises on that site or any other site around Australia?
Again, Senator, I can only think in terms of the existing regulatory requirements. If there was a substantial new part of the land to be added to the airport, we would certainly consider calling in a new master plan and try and examine some of those issues about what would this mean for the existing tenants on the site. Equally, if an airport was proposing to move sites around or move tenants around on the airport under some power, we'd look at how to satisfy ourselves about the impact of that before giving any regulatory approval that was required.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Senator Fawcett. Senator Heffernan, we've got 3 minutes left.
Okay, back to Charlie. Given where it's all up to, and given that what's proposed by Charlie defies all aviation logic for everyone from the airlines to the department to Minister Albanese, are we at the inevitable stage of having to cop it?
Senator, I'm not sure that the Minister has written again to the New South Wales Minister seeking reconsideration. There are a few elements of the decision which alleviated some of the serious concerns. It's only part of the proposal which has been approved. Developments to be kept outside the 20 ANEF. The accommodation, the housing is to be insulated, and any tenants are to be formally notified of the potential impact. So there's some attempt being made to alleviate it.
So it's buyer beware?
So buyer understands when they go in that there is that problem, which is not a perfect solution, not suggesting for a moment.
And I wondered why, and maybe I've asked Mr Winnell himself, why they didn't negotiate a land swap. I mean, he originally took an option on it. I mean, I am aware that money speaks all languages, and it's quite an interesting saga, I can tell you. But I wonder why it wouldn't make sense still to do a land swap. We've got plenty of bloody land.
We have raised, look, coming back to your point, we have raised with the New South Wales Government the very issue that Queanbeyan Council today is opening up industrial land within 1 kilometre of the town and is yet putting new suburbs 10 kilometres from town under a flight path. You would have thought the logical solution would be to have the residential areas close to the main street of Queanbeyan and the industrial estates out at Tralee, but that's not what Queanbeyan Council has chosen to do. We continue to make that point to them.
I just hope this doesn't become an Eddie Obeid sleeper. I'll leave it at that.